We have no sound. Dear participants, good morning, everybody. Welcome you to the presentation of the 22 regional overview of food security and nutrition in Europe and Central Asia. I would like to express a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Raimund Jelle. I'm the regional program leader for Europe and Central Asia in the FAO Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia. And I'm your moderator for this event today. So before we are going to get started, a short information that this event is organized in English with simultaneous translation into Russian. And I'm almost sure everybody of you is already familiar with the technical issues. But if you click on this little globe button on the bottom of your Zoom panel, and you select then the English channel, if you can not hear interpretation, or you select the Russian channel, if you cannot hear the interpretation, please certainly text in the Zoom chat to the hosts, and they will troubleshoot you and help you. So let's get started. The 2022 Regional Panorama is already the 8th report, which is monitoring regional trends and progress towards reaching the Zero Hunger Sustainable Development Goal, or also, of course, known as the SDG 2. With the multiple crises we are facing, the focus on achieving the SDGs is more than ever important. Globally, food insecurity is increasing, and the European and the Central Asia region is in this case not different. If we are taking, for example, the figures between 2019 and 2021, the number of moderate or severely food insecure people have increased by more than 25 million. So providing an overview and monitoring the situation to facilitate the policy response is important. So this is a key purpose of the report we are, of course, launching today. And as you know, the ones who have been several times also participating, the report usually has two sections. One gives an overview regarding the status and the development of food security overall in the region. And the second section of this year's edition includes the analysis of agriculture policies and incentives to make diets more affordable and sustainable. So I'm very happy to go a bit more into the details with the keynote speakers, and particularly the panelists, to analyze and to identify some of the key issues of this report. In this case, I'm very happy, of course, to welcome our distinguished Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Europe and Central Asia, Vladimir Olegovich Rachmanin. But I'm also very happy to be connected to the University of Szeged, and you can see on the screen that we have quite a large audience also over there, and having also a keynote speech from Professor Diana Banati, the Deputy Dean will be very much welcome and broaden our perspective of this regional overview. But without further ado, I would like to give the floor to you, Vladimir Olegovich. You have the floor. Thank you.
Raman, thank you very much. Dear Dr. Diana Banati, dear colleagues in Szeged, we should have come to you. Bonaparte, good to see you all with us, but I'm talking from the same country. I'm in Budapest now. Dear colleagues from UN agencies, from the region, добрый день, уважаемые коллеги из региона. It's really an honor and pleasure for me to address you today at the launch of the 2022 overview of food security and nutrition in Europe and Central Asia. With the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its ambitious goals for a more sustainable and equitable world, countries and their international partners committed themselves to regular monitoring and reporting on progress. Since 2015, FAO Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia and our regional United Nations partners are monitoring the international development goals related to food security and nutrition, publishing annually the regional overview of food and security and nutrition. This year, we are launching the report 8th year in a row. It was prepared jointly by 8 members. There is a symbol in 2 8s. In Chinese, it means it's very good, symbolically very good. It was prepared jointly by 8 members of the issue-based coalition on sustainable food systems for Europe and Central Asia. And we are really grateful to all of them for their cooperation and contributions. Joint efforts have been made. This issue much more comprehensive. We think so. The theme of this year's report is repurposing policies and incentives to make healthy diets more affordable and agri-food systems more environmentally sustainable. After decades of steady decline, world hunger is rising, and efforts to end hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition in all its forms are moving backwards. We are now less than 8 years away from 2030, but the distance to reach many of the SDG 2 targets, which we know as zero hunger, is growing wider each year. And most recently, because of devastating impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts, climate extremes and natural disasters, energy and financial shocks, and inequality. This is of highest concern and a clear warning signal. Accomplishing the ambition of a world without hunger and malnutrition by 2030 will require renewed efforts and new ways of working. Europe and Central Asia region is heterogeneous in terms of composition of countries and their economic structures, climate conditions, rates of economic growth and transition, and other social demographic features. The estimates in our report confirm that the prevalence of hunger at chronic or severe levels is relatively low in our region. However, the moderate levels are quite high. In the region, COVID-19 pandemic, as Raymond already said, added 25.5 million people to the ranks of the moderately or severely food insecure in 2021. The war in Ukraine has further aggravated the situation. At the same time, the region is seeing alarmingly high and rising rates of overweight and obesity. In addition, almost all subregions, as the report shows, in our region are experiencing increased costs and reduced affordability of healthy diets because of higher food prices and lower incomes. The 2021 United States Food System Summit provided global momentum to achieve the SDGs through the agri-food system lens. One of the necessary building blocks in the agri-food systems transformation is the repurposing of food and agricultural policies. Using the data available in our region, this report analyzes in depth the ways to do it. Our findings confirm that food and agriculture policies need to be repurposed, better adjusted to make them well suited to address the triple challenge of current agri-food systems, increasing the affordability of healthy diets, ensuring better livelihoods for farmers, and improving environmental sustainability. In conclusion, I would like once again to thank our partners for all the collaboration offered in the preparation of the report. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this important event, and I am looking forward to our discussions, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Olegovich, for setting already the scene and outlining some of the key issues for our discussion also today. So in this case, I'm very happy to pass over the floor to our keynote address today from the Szeged University, as mentioned already, Professor Diana Banati, the Deputy Dean of the Institute of Food Engineering. So Professor Banati, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Very much. Mr. Rachmanin, representatives of the United Nations agencies and organizations, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleagues and students from the University of Szeged. This is our great honor being involved in the launch of the overview, the regional overview of the food security and nutrition document. The University of Szeged is situated in the southern eastern part of Hungary. Hungary is in the middle of Europe, in the heart of Europe, if I may say, and it is very well connected via air, water, and railway to the rest of Europe. The four missions of the University of Szeged allow us to be the engine of the knowledge system. Education, excellence in education. We have 22,000 students, 4,500 graduates each year. We provide education at all levels, BSc, MSc, and PhD. We are ranked amongst the best universities. Regarding research, there are dozens.
Professor Banati, can I interrupt you for just a second? Could the presentation be put in the presentation mode? We see at the moment not the full presentation mode. Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you very much for this technical note. My colleagues will try to do so.
I hope it works.
We see it on full screen.
Now it's perfect. Very good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So via our four missions, we have a very important regional role. We are the engine in the knowledge system, and we provide research and education. We are involved in dozens of research programs, more than 70 EU-financed projects, resulting in 5,000 publications each year. With our 30 clinics, we have an important role in healthcare, and our third mission also allows us to be the center of the innovation ecosystem. We are not an ivory tower in the academic field, but rather a lighthouse, sharing knowledge in the region. So being the center of the innovation ecosystem resulted in being the best Hungarian university according to the World University Ranking QS. And in other international university rankings, we also have a very prominent role. Just to mention an important aspect, that we are the greenest Hungarian university, the 73rd in the world. We provide skilled workforce with the help of our 12 faculties. and 19 doctoral schools, and there are specific educational programs connected to food security and nutrition in various study fields. We train food engineers, engineers in food safety and quality. Very soon we'll provide nutrition science MSc. We train agricultural and environmental engineers, and so. In the field of research, we are a center of excellence for interdisciplinary research. And as you see on these figures, especially the one on the right, which shows the academic contribution of the university to the enhancement and fulfillment of the sustainable development goals. We have an important role, when I say we, that's in blue, the University of Szeged, as compared to Hungary in red and black, the world's performance. So we contribute to several sustainable development goals, amongst others, good health and well-being and sustainable, responsible consumption and production of food, for example, life and land, and many others. The figure in the middle shows our scholarly output based on the number of citations, what kind of research impact we have in the field on nutrition, food, and diet, especially if you see chemistry, engineering, physics in blue, environment, food, again engineering in green, and healthcare in red. And the third mission, we take advantage of the university's interdisciplinary nature via healthy people, healthy food, healthy plant and animal-based nutrition. So we contribute to this idea and strategy of the so-called One Health. We organize numerous conferences, and we are aiming to develop a so-called science park for future research. And being in the core of the economical ecosystem, we are in the center of this innovation ecosystem. We have close collaboration, not just with other academic institutions, but with the industry, with government, with the civil society, and in the same time, taking care of our natural environment. There are obviously national strategies which pave the way, such as the Healthy Hungary Food Economic Concept, National Sustainable Development Programs, but our university have a much greater and wider role via its international collaboration. So ladies and gentlemen, FAOs and the United Nations, different organizations output this regional overview of food security and nutrition, provides a framework for us. It shows the current status, it aims for common goals, it shows the directions on how to provide secure, safe, nutritious, affordable food which is produced in a sustainable way. So secure, safe, and nutritious food for all. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Warm greetings from the University of Szeged, which is the alma mater of Albert Szent-Györgyi and Katalin Karikó. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Banati, for this very concise and very to the point also presentation of linking the university efforts in the end also to the situation in the region and also to the report. Very much welcomed and very much appreciated. So thank you very much for this excellent input. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, let's come to now the heart of the report. And we are going to show you a very short video which provides you with the key details, what is in the report in 2022. So the video, can we get that one?
In early 2022, just as the world began to hope that recovery from COVID-19 would increase food security, the war in Ukraine broke out, setting back the region in its aim to eliminate malnutrition and meet the 2030 agenda. The 2022 Europe and Central Asia Regional Overview of Food Security and Nutrition shows that the region is not on track to meet that goal, despite progress being made towards reducing child stunting, wasting, and low birth weight. The report's data indicates that Europe and Central Asia are affected by the triple burden of malnutrition, undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and overnutrition. There are alarmingly high and rising rates of overweight and obesity. Overweight among children aged 6 to 9 is severe in many countries of the region. Latest regional figures show that about 1 in 4 adults are obese. The evidence indicates that the region experienced increased costs and reduced affordability of healthy diets because of inflation in consumer food prices, income losses impacted by the rapid spread of COVID-19, and the measures implemented along food supply chains to contain it. The situation worsened in 2022 due to the added impacts of the ongoing war in Ukraine, causing price inflation and shortages of wheat and cereals, fertilizers, high energy costs, and tightening financial environments. The number of people suffering from moderate or severe food insecurity has soared. In this context, existing policies are no longer successful at reducing food insecurity and malnutrition. What actions can governments take to promote good nutrition and better livelihoods more cost-effectively and efficiently for all in the agricultural sector? The SOFI Regional Overview examines repurposing food, agricultural and socio-economic policies and incentives to make healthy diets more affordable, equitable and more environmentally sustainable. Some countries in the region have developed trade restrictions aimed at self-sufficiency of their food systems, which have caused market distortions and consumer hardship. These trade policies and investment incentives need to be rebalanced. There is now an emphasis on livestock and dairy, which are overconsumed and have heavy greenhouse gas emissions. To encourage healthier diets, we should tilt production towards fruits, vegetables, legumes and underutilized fruits, and develop policy options that integrate multi-sectorial strategies within and outside of agri-food systems. We must act quickly to create sustainable agri-food systems for small-scale farming that promote equitable participation by women and youth, and produce food that is affordable and nutritious for all. Together, we can end hunger, food insecurity and malnutrition in all its forms for all, leaving no one behind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the report and the video has illustrated this very clearly, shows alarming figures for the region. It shows alarming figures, but at the same time, I think we also need to discuss solutions. We need to discuss solutions. How are we going to ensure affordable diet, affordable healthy diets, but at the same time, how we are making our food systems more sustainable. So we would like to go in the next 45 minutes into more details. And for these reasons, we have two panels. We are going to discuss slicing the issues of the report further up. In the first panel, we would like to analyze the policies, how we can take healthy diets more affordable. And in the second panel, we are looking into areas and we're discussing what is the contribution of the policies to make our food systems more affordable. And I'm very happy to be joined, particularly in this first panel, by Simon Holema, the Senior Program Advisor for WFP in the Regional Bureau of WFP in Cairo, Elizabeth Turk, the Director of Economic Cooperation and Trade Division of UNECE, and Kremlin Vikramasinghe, the head of the Office for Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases in the WHO Regional Office for Europe. So I'm very happy to welcome you on this first panel and really to discuss the repurposing of policies and incentives to make healthy diets more affordable. Let me maybe from FAO's perspective give a couple of short introduction remarks to the panel, and particular as I think we all agree that healthy diets that contain a balanced, diverse nutrition and appropriate selected foods is protecting against the effects of malnutrition in all its forms, but of course also against non-communicable diseases. In the report, we can definitely see that the costs and the affordability of the healthy diets have significantly increased in 2022. And the evidence shows that the ECA region and almost all the ECA subregions were experiencing these increased costs and the reduced affordability of healthy diets. So the main reason is, of course, food inflation stemming from the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the measures implemented along the food supply chains, which are containing it. The situation in 22, I think, has even worsened due to the impact of the ongoing war in Ukraine. And we do not know what are the implications of the recent earthquake in Turkey. So the report we have also seen has very strongly given evidence that this is happening in the middle-income countries who are highly affected. And these countries have limited capacities to help the mitigation of the crisis through food production, exports, and investment in the agri-food system. So it's therefore very important for the governments to start the examination and the analysis of the current support to the food and agriculture, and to evaluate if the funds which are made available could be further reallocated to make it more cost effectively and efficient to reduce food insecurity and malnutrition in all of its form in the region. In this case, I would like to ask Simon from WFP one of the first questions, because the report shows that the cost and the affordability of the healthy diet has really affected by many drivers. So when repurposing public support to make healthy diets more affordable, policymakers will have to avoid, and in some cases probably to manage, potentially inequality trade-offs, since the farmers and particularly small scale farmers, women, youth, and children are affected. So Simon, what would you say? What kind of policies, programs can be used to reduce the cost of healthy diets and increase the affordability of a healthy diet, and making sure that we're not leaving anyone behind? And what are the key programs in this context from WFP in the region?
Yeah, thanks so much, Raymond, and welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm actually in Turkey right now, responding to the earthquake. It's a very good question here on healthy diets and seeing what has happened in the region with the impact that the crisis in Ukraine has brought, of course, with the increased food inflation that we see throughout the region. If we just look at food inflation in Moldova of almost 30%, similar in Ukraine, in Armenia around 10%, which has a dramatic impact, of course, on the ability of people to actually afford a healthy diet. And this is one of the key things when we're looking at food policies and agricultural food policies and part of the overall system. The key message from our side is really do not forget the demand side. On one part, we have the supply side, and that was also very nicely presented in the video that you just saw in terms of what we can do in agriculture. On the other side of that equation is the demand. If people cannot afford a healthy diet, we have a big problem, of course. So WFP is trying to really address that and coming in from that particular angle. So one, of course, is the support that we provide to the Black Sea Grain Initiative as part of the global response, and ensuring that the most vulnerable can still access food. And this has also provided globally, of course, lots of relief and easing some of the prices and the inflation that we saw globally. In terms of specific impacts of things that we do in Ukraine, and particularly working on the demand side, is the direct food support that we provide healthy, balanced food to about 300,000 people that we're supporting that directly. And then there's a particular entry point through national social protection systems that we're supporting, often to top up, again, ensuring that the most vulnerable can access healthy and nutritious diets. You see a similar initiatives and support in Moldova, where hot meals are provided directly to Ukrainian refugees in reception centers. But also, again, support to people that are hosting refugees and providing support to vulnerable households directly to the national social protection system, the ajutor social that you will find in Moldova. So how do we ensure that access to food and to a healthy diet is addressed? Other examples that we can provide is our analysis that we are doing. For example, in Armenia, the analysis on what we call fill the nutrient gap. And this is a cost of diet analysis. So really seeing what is locally available in the market, what nutritious food items are available in the market, and what is the minimum nutrition, vitamins, minerals intake that you require, and how much does that actually would cost. And that gives you a complete different perspective on gaps, nutritional gaps that need to be filled. So we do these analyses in numerous countries and can certainly also make that available in the region in terms of doing these type of analysis to shape policy and to address particularly that demand side of the equation. Another examples are school feeding programs, and then using these school feeding programs to educate also youth and young people on nutrition programs and the importance of healthy diet. Let me leave it at that, Raymond.
Yeah, Simon, very good, very clear. On one hand, let's say the direct support, which you have outlined. On the other hand, I think you have given a good point when talking also about local analysis, what is also local available. And in this case, I want to transition, in this case, to Elizabeth Turk, because of course, what we have heard in, let's say, the last couple of 18 months is that there is more focus again on self-sufficiency of the agri-food commodities. And this has, of course, led to import and also export restrictions, and policies need, on the other hand, to be reshaped to apply a more balanced approach in designing agri-food trade policies. So Elizabeth, from the UNECE perspective, and you're heading the trade and market division, what do you think is the most important part of trade and trade facilitation for reducing prices and ensuring affordability?
Many thanks, Raymond, and many thanks for this very focused question. Maybe just to start, a great pleasure to be here, and let me also really congratulate FAO as the lead and all IBC members, and also the University of Szeged for that really very interesting report. And I think we can see that SOFI is really establishing itself as some sort of like flagship report in the way how we build up on the different dimensions and additions. Now, as previous speakers already said, like this year, it's very much about holistic policy making. And coming from the economic side of things, as Raymond just said, and like in line with the work streams of UNECE's Economic Cooperation and Trade Division, such a holistic approach would require, for example, mobilizing financing into agriculture for food security. It would also require harnessing the power of innovation for the many related challenges. And it would require taking a trade perspective. And it's really this trade perspective that I would like to focus on here today. Now, why do we believe that the trade is so important? There are two dimensions on that. First of all, trade and international trade really helps us to ensure access to and affordability of food. But trade with all the supply chains also is really important because we need to ensure that we don't have too much food loss and food waste along these supply chains. So these are the two aspects I would like to flag to you today. Now, if we start with the trade, purely the role of trade, Trade enables us to produce where production is most efficient. Trade can help increase productivity and competitiveness. Trade can help increase availability and lower the costs for the consumers. And trade can also, when we look at agricultural products, help us to ensure a continuous supply. And I think that's really, really important when we look at all these products that have a seasonal nature. Let's just think about the fresh fruit and vegetables that are so important for a healthy and nutritious diet. So for all of these aspects, international trade can help. However, in order to really harness these benefits of international trade, it's important that the products arrive fast and in a streamlined manner, and that they can travel efficiently across borders. And that's where we need trade facilitation. So we need to ensure that we streamline, simplify, and harmonize the technical and legal procedures that agricultural produce faces at the border. And that's what trade facilitation is about. In UNECE, we look specifically at trade facilitation from an agriculture perspective, and there are a few measures that are particularly important. For example, that perishable goods get special treatment when they cross the border, or that we facilitate testing and compliance with SPS certificates, or that we look into how to increase digitalization of trade procedures, for example, through the eCert certificate. And in UNECE, we also take stock of all these trade facilitation developments. And it's quite good to see and very promising that in the UNECE region, trade facilitation in agriculture is really given great importance by policymakers and trade policymakers. And we are proud that in UNECE, through our agricultural trade facilitation standards and also through our agricultural quality standards, we can contribute to this making trade flow more easily. Now, let me just briefly mention the second point, because when we talk about international trade in agriculture, agricultural products, we talk about supply chains that crisscross the planet. Now, what we also need to ensure is that we don't have too much food loss and food waste along these international agri-food supply chains. And we have to be realistic here, because at the moment, 1/3 of all food harvested goes to waste, either along the supply chain or by the consumers. And so what that means is that also the water, the labor, the fuel, the seed, the fertilizer, the land, all of that that is being used to produce this food is also being wasted. And according to some data, knowing that about 1/3 of food is being lost means that 25% of the world's freshwater supply, 8 to 10% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and large amount of fertilizers are being used for food that is not being eaten. So that's why it's so important that when we look at international agri-food supply chains, that we work hard to reduce food loss and waste. And here again, we are proud that UNECE has a tool that's our code of good practice that helps the supply chain actors what they can do, particularly for fresh food and vegetables, to prevent food loss and waste. And our code of good practice, it builds on the FAO voluntary code of conduct for food loss and waste reduction. That's a more generic framework. And I would say together, these two tools really provide a very powerful package. So to conclude from our UNECE perspective, next to mobilizing financing into agriculture, harnessing the power of innovation for agriculture, also trade is a very, very important aspect. And here we, on the one hand, need to ensure that we can harness the power of trade and make trade flow easily, agricultural trade flow easily. And secondly, we need to work hard to reduce food loss and waste along agricultural supply chains. So with this, many thanks, and back to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think very clear message how we are using in the end also trade to probably keep the costs for an affordable diet in the range, as well as also this importance of food loss and waste. In that sense, I would like to turn to Kremlin from WHO, who is heading in fact the directorate also for non-communicable diseases. And Kremlin, if we are showing, or if we're looking into report, we know that nearly 27% of the children between 6 and 9 years are overweight between 2015 and 17, and a much higher prevalence is also amongst children under the age of 5. adult obesity is on the rise in the sub-region, and that really the report shows that more work must be done to be able to reach the target of SDG 2 on ending malnutrition. What, from your point of view, are the data collection and monitoring systems on cost and healthy diets of WHO in Europe, and any option on public support on nutrition and health in the ECA region from your perspective?
Thank you, Raymond. And let me join the other colleagues congratulating FAO for coordinating and delivering the report. And it was great pleasure from WHO to support and join this launch event. When we come to the data, WHO published a report on obesity last year, 2022, WHO regional report on obesity. We tried to bring all obesity-related statistics into one place. And as the report shows, we have data for under 5, primary school children, secondary school children, and adults. Now, the best data, scientifically speaking, exists for primary school children from age 6 to 9, or we call Childhood Obesity Surveillance Initiative, where it's the same protocol we run in all the countries. We have 43 countries in the European region joining that, and we measure children with the same protocol. When it's come to under 5, we rely on different data sources. They are not the same method, they are not the same protocol, so we do a little bit of adjustments. And this is an area where we really need to improve. It's quite embarrassing that the European region has the weakest data for under 5 nutritional status compared to rest of the world, actually. Maybe we thought this is not a problem for us and given up our national level surveillance systems and data sharing. So this is an area where we really need to focus to get a better picture about under 5. That's true. Primary school data shows 1 in 3 children nearly are living with overweight and obesity. Now in Central Asian countries, it's lower. It's maybe between 10 and 20. But we see the sharpest increase in overweight and obesity in the Central Asian countries. And the rate of increase is higher in these countries than the Western European or Southern European countries. Now, some countries like Portugal, Spain, Cyprus reach even 40% for boys living with overweight and obesity, and they are slightly coming down, no plateauing. So we don't need to wait until 40% of our primary school children develop overweight obesity. We can take action now to tackle that. Now, we, in our report, obesity report last year, we interviewed from ministries of health, key people who are working on obesity. We asked WHO recommendations have not changed for last decade. What we said in 2010 resolution, how to tackle obesity, what are the most cost-effective policies, are exactly the same, mostly the same as now. Why couldn't we implement them? And there is a table in our report where they explain why they couldn't, despite government commitments, why these policies are not implemented. And it's same as for school nutrition. If we look at the policy, we have a perfect policy in the country, but if you look at what children eat on the canteen on the daily basis, it's not in line with the policy. There may be a lot of reasons from the policy to the canteen table why it's not happening, including challenges for procurement, where we really don't collect data on. Other issues are changing the culture aspects where we don't really collect data. Like people say, yes, our dietary changes are changing. In Central Asian countries, number of times primary school children drinking sugary drinks per week is much higher than Western European countries. So we ask, how many times do you drink sugary drinks in the past week? And those numbers in Central Asian countries are much higher than the Western European countries. And we don't have really good data to explain why, but that clearly shows a change in the dietary patterns and culture driven by marketing and what's changing in the region, which we need to tackle rather than waiting until 40% of the children get there. Other part is labeling, where we are not seeing very good mandatory labeling scheme coming up in the region for food labeling. And we hear trade Probably this is good that Elizabeth was speaking. And when we speak in the Eurasian Economic Union context, they say we can't do anything at national level. This is a trade issue. This has to be done by the Eurasian Economic Union context. But countries like Uzbekistan are going ahead with very good labeling policies they are trying to introduce in the next couple of years because they can take that decision. And that's a presidential decree. So we see movement in the country, but at the same time, challenges in the region to implement some of the nutrition promotion policies. And we need to show this data and encourage countries to take better action. One more point is the Feed City study, which we have conducted, because we know in the Central Asian countries, a lot of food which are not packaged. And these are most commonly consumed food available to buy, made by small cafe shops on the street. So we analyze their salt contents, their trans fats, their energy, sugar. And for almost all the countries, the reports are available. That shows the ministries of health, the nutrition content of mostly common consumed foods in their countries. And what can we do with small cafeterias, small traders to change that practice and improve them? Sometimes one bowl of soup provides you more than the recommended daily amount of salt, right? And we need to do something about it. We can't leave it like that and think about a healthier nutrition or sugar levels. So there's a lot of data that we can take action, but there are also some barriers. We really hope we could support this process to improve the nutrition situation in the sub-region. And thank you, Raymond. I'll pass it back to you.
Great, Kremlin, for this one, touching on this data issue. And what I'm happy in this case also to hear that, of course, there is a lot to do, but there is also a bit light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think this is definitely something which we're looking forward. So ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, we have touched now with this first panel on the policies and on the measures really to ensure that diet remains affordable and healthy. Of course, this will be still also a controversial discussion, but we have seen very interesting elements in order to explain this further. And so we had a bit more the perspective of the consumer side. But now let's have a bit perspective and an aspect, of course, to look at the production side, to ensure that we have also a sustainable production and that the farmers have the tools and mechanisms to ensure this sustainable production. And with the second panel, we would like to emphasize this with distinguished panelists a bit more. And in this case, I'm happy to be joined by Gert Trogeman from the UNDP Istanbul Hub. He's the manager of the hub. Cornelia Radic, the director of the World Meteorological Office for Europe in Geneva. Philippe Remy, the country director for Montenegro, Libya, and Tunisia in the IFAD Near East, North Africa, Europe, and Central Asia division. And last but not least, Gabriela Fontana, the regional health advisor from the Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia of UNICEF. So we are looking with these distinguished panelists into the second area. How are we going to make food systems more sustainable from the perspective more of the production? Because a healthy, sustainable, and equitable and efficient agri-food systems transformation will really need the coordination of multi-sectoral policies within and outside of the agri-food systems. Some of the farmers, and we would probably all agree, especially small-scale farmers and women who are facing resource constraints and a lack of knowledge and who do not have access to markets, are not in a position to specialize in the production of priority nutritious also foods. So therefore, it's very important that policy measures will be needed to protect the vulnerable farmers and, on the other hand, also promote their market access when considering the repurposing of resources to prioritize food consumers and incentivize sustainable production. So it's really important to take into account synergies and trade-offs between the affordability of a healthy diet and the environmental sustainability of agri-food systems. So complementing policies in health, education for nutrition and trade facilitation, climate and environment, and program for children in the European and Central Asia region can really support shifts in the food supply chains and consumer behavior towards a more healthy diet, and ease or mitigate also trade-offs. So let me ask Gert first, because significant commodity-specific support is linked to the overuse of inputs and land and water resources. In the ECA region, emission intensities indicate that there is a great potential for reduction of greenhouse gas emission. Gert, what are, from UNDP's perspective, what are the results of studies and recommendations and UNDP's entry points for supporting to achieve sustainable food systems?
Thanks a lot, Raymond. And let me also, if you permit me, start from the outset with a word of appreciation to you in FAO for the leadership in this exercise, but also to the faculty, staff, and students of Szeged University. My congratulations and appreciation, and all the IPC members. I think from where we sit, we believe that the joint work that underpins this important report is an excellent example of how issue-based coalition can work together in support of the UN country teams in the region at large. As UNDP, as you indicated, Raymond, we're focused on evidence-based recommendations and studies in terms of inputs to this joint knowledge product. And we focus on ways to reduce carbon, land, water, and biodiversity footprints of the food systems and repurpose current agri-food support and policies towards nature-positive practices. Let me start, if I may, with the fact that commodity-specific support is often linked to the overuse of inputs and land and water resources, as you indicated, Raymond. More than $20 billion is spent on supporting the most harmful commodities for the environment. Of this amount, roughly $6.1 billion is spent in the middle-income countries of this region. It is critical from our perspective that commodity-specific support to the most emission-intensive sectors, such as the beef production chain, for example, is redirected towards measures that increase environmental sustainability and resilience. And from that perspective, we believe we need to continue to support policy coherence, nature-positive incentives, and work towards enhancing institutional capacities for sustainability and resilience. A second point under this big umbrella, I would say, is the big difference in greenhouse gas emissions that you find between livestock and crops, among livestock products and crops. And policies on food and agriculture need to consider specific emission intensities by agricultural products in each of the countries. So when you design nutrition-sensitive agri-food systems, that's what we believe we need to look at. For example, if you take a strategic approach to reducing GHG emissions from agriculture, you would want to prioritize the highest emission contributing products and the countries in which they are primarily grown, i.e. the major commodities such as wheat, milk, beef, sunflower seeds, maize, sugar, etc., in countries such as Ukraine, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, which together produce around 80% of the agricultural emissions in this context. So we need to continue supporting these countries implement sustainable nature-positive policies and biodiversity-friendly practices in the agriculture and food sector. A third point, we believe that it is crucial to support policymakers and farmers to ensure that livestock is produced through land management systems that respect the carrying capacities of the ecosystem, and that the expansion of agriculture in the most ecologically sensitive and biologically rich areas is as limited as possible. UNDP is helping in this regard countries to transform production landscapes to conserve natural habitats, sustain ecosystem services, protect biodiversity, and tackle climate change adaptation and mitigation. In addition, when you consider projected future climate change impacts, as we see them already happening in many countries, a focus on agricultural technology development, on innovation, and on optimizing water usage and irrigation infrastructure becomes critical. In that regard, we will need to support countries to, one, access climate-smart technologies, digital platforms, and tools for farming communities, but also, and that it goes back to Elizabeth's point before, access markets and price information, access agronomic advisories and climate information services to model for database decision-making and trade-offs and synergies. Last but not least, and Raymond, let me conclude with this point, a point I think quite heavily discussed also in the IBC, is the need to stress that helping farmers rethink the way they do business and connect to nature is increasingly central, but also difficult to achieve. Shifting narratives and behaviors towards conscious food systems and nature positive practices will remain as such a very crucial part of achieving environmental sustainability and livelihood resilience in Europe and Central Asia. Raymond, I hope I stayed within the time limits. Again, my appreciation to you and all fellow colleagues on the screen. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerd, for this one. Very timely. In my clocking, you were exactly with the 5 minutes, which we have foreseen. In this case, I'm happy, and particularly as you were talking on the greenhouse gas emissions and how to work on this, I'm happy to turn to Cornelia Radic, the director of the WMO Regional Office for Europe. And Cornelia, the global framework for climate service can help accelerating coordination and promote also the development and the application of climate services to assist the decision making at all levels. So the integrated global greenhouse gas information system can in this case also support decision makers with information to guide valuable and additional emission reduction action. And Gerd was already referring in this case very closely to the importance. How do you see the role of WMO initiatives playing in achieving also food security and nutrition in Europe and Central Asia?
Thank you very much for your question, and thank you very much for your invitation. On behalf of the World Meteorological Organization and the Regional Office for Europe, I'm delighted to participate this launch event today. Going back to your question, WMO, supported by its experts community, has contributed to the publication with particular focus on the WMO Greenhouse Gas Monitoring Initiative, the global framework of weather, climate, water, and related environmental services, and the Regional Agricultural Center. Through these three mentioned initiatives, WMO seeks to repurpose policies while also promote more environmental sustainable practices. Given the increasing focus on the role of the greenhouse gas as a driver of climate change and the need to strengthen the greenhouse gas information basis for decisions on climate mitigation efforts, WMO is working with the greenhouse gas monitoring community to develop a framework for sustained, internationally coordinated global greenhouse gas monitoring. The other initiative, the global framework for weather, water, climate, and related environmental services, serves as a key platform for regional coordination and implementation of climate services, including agrometeorological services throughout Europe and Central Asia. And the third one, the Regional Agricultural Center, established in Romania, offers an important platform for agriculture and food security research and development, and for connecting these science and policymaking communities. The center is getting ready to offer a range of services, including agroclimatic advisories, climate risk assessments, climate monitoring and early warning system, as well as capacity building activities. We are confident that the initiatives will provide full support towards achieving food security and nutrition in Europe and Central Asia by helping to improve the accuracy of short-term weather forecasts. This initiative can also help reduce the risk of natural disasters such as floods or droughts, which can cause food shortages and disruption in the food supply chain. Additionally, these initiatives can provide data on climate change and its impacts, of course, which can help farmers adjust their farming practices to better prepare for future climate conditions. And finally, I can mention that these initiatives can provide data on climate change and its impacts, which can help farmers to, which will also help to ensure the food security and nutrition in the region. So therefore, we encourage all decision makers from the region to make use of the existing good practices, adopt the existing policies to meet needs of sustainable development goals. And we are also looking forward to expanding our collaboration within the region in order to better support the sustainable development and food security and nutrition goals in Europe and Central Asia. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, and back to you.
Thank you, Cornelia, for this one, particularly also highlighting again also the role of WMO, but also the tools which are going to be available and how important they are to be taken into consideration. I would like to turn a bit, because we talked about greenhouse gas emissions, we talked about meteorological also services. I would like to turn to Philippe Remy, the country director and in the directorate in the division of IFAD for North Africa, Central Asia, Europe. Because one of the highlights, Philippe, in the report is when repurposing public support to make healthy diets more affordable, policymakers will have obviously to avoid potential inequality trade-offs, particularly as the farmers are not able to become maybe specialized in the production of priority nutritious food, or they do not have the technology. They do not have the technology because there is maybe a lack of investment. The ECA region offers good examples of agriculture investments for inclusive and nutritious food supply chains. So the question to you is, giving the limited budget and resources for food and agriculture available, how to make investment in food and agriculture for farmers, livelihoods and food systems more environmental sustainable? Do you have examples from IFAD in the region?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. And we are glad to have the opportunity to participate in this panel, which is very timely. So I am, as you said, Philippe Remy, I represent IFAD, and I represent particularly my regional director, Dina Saleh. So I would like to highlight some points quickly, because actually we don't have so much time to do that. And there are a lot of projects in IFAD in the region that could be listed, but I don't think we'll have time to go very further, but I will present a few points first. The first one is that one, as we know, major obstacle to realizing sustainable and inclusive food system is a lack of sufficient and appropriate financing. And recent estimates suggest that transforming food system to deliver healthy people, healthy planet, healthy economy will require an extra $300 billion per year for the next decade. So I think this is very key to keep this in mind. And then, of course, rural development plays a central role in ending poverty and hunger. And therefore, to deliver on the promise of the 2030 agenda, and for it to be truly universal, the development community needs to refocus its attention on rural people and direct investment to rural areas. So countries must develop plans to support rural producers. They need to build sustainable food system without their individual context. And linking, as we try to do in IFAD, local needs to national development pathways and international coordination, while developing financing systems that accommodate changing global realities would help the transformation in a sustainable way. And in this context, we can say that the PDB, the public development banks, already form a significant part of the food system financing architecture. They provide over 2/3 of formal financing to the agricultural sector, and they have the mandates, they have the positioning, they have the tools to play a more catalytic role in accelerating the transition towards more inclusive, sustainable food system. And as public bodies, they can convene diverse stakeholders and set and promote shared standards to accelerate investments. So structured financial activities have been created to ensure a better environmental outcome, or what we call green finance, and they could reach $2.36 trillion in order to incentivize sustainable practices. So in this context, in these transformative changes, IFAD is try to provide and provides finance to rural development projects through identifying a set of focused and interlinked activities. And this is key, to interlinked activities from supporting small-scale producer in adapting to climate change to integrating rural youth and women into value chain for inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable rural landscapes, setting gender empowerment as a key priority, and resilient targets to build and to maintain impacts that last. So globally, IFAD has committed close to $1 billion in climate finance across 70 projects. And with another $300 million from our donors, IFAD has channeled climate and environmental finance to 6 million vulnerable producers in 41 countries through our ASAP, which is Adaptation for Smallholder Agriculture program. So this was a success program, and now it is enhanced with a new program called ASAP Plus that will mobilize another $500 million. And our partnerships are crucial to getting climate finance to the small-scale producers who need it. And IFAD has secured $283 million from funds, environment funds, green funds like Adaptation Fund, Green Climate Fund, and GEF between 2019 and 2022. And those funds are key, of course, to support the process and the changes. However, what I wanted to emphasize in concluding this speech is that the use of those funds are still limited in the ECA region, and an effort should focus on these aspects to mobilize more effectively climate funds in the ECA region. And IFAD is doing it, but I think we believe that there is a need to go further and to be more effective in mobilizing those funds with our diverse partners, of course. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Philippe. I think you outlined it very clear that mobilizing, in this case, also resources requires a wider partnership. I think it's not just the institutional, let's say the public funds, but of course also private sector funding into climate technology in order to get the farmers fit also for, let's say, the purpose. Let me, in this case, go to our last but not least speaker, Gabriele Fontana, the regional health advisor of the regional office for Europe and Central Asia of UNICEF. Because of course, if we want to have production, we need, of course, also healthy children. And the situation in 2020 with the children under 5 years of age, stunting and wasting in principle is much lower than the world average, but the prevalence of overweight amongst the children under 5 years of age is really, was estimated 7.1%, so much higher in this region than the world average, which is 5.7%. And so, Gabriele, I would like to ask you, is it important to have the right policies in place to address malnutrition in the ECA region? And what are the policies and programs which are recommended from the UNICEF perspective?
Thank you, Raymond, and thank you, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here and maybe offer some complementary reflections to what has been shared so far. I'm very aware that I'm probably the last person standing between many of us and lunch, talking about nutrition. So I'll be as quick as I can be. As you know, children are most in need of our support to reach their full potential, and adequate nutrition starting during pregnancy, throughout early childhood and adolescence is needed for children to thrive. And we know malnutrition poses a great threat. As Sophie highlighted, in the European region, undernutrition is still lingering among the most deprived groups, especially marginalized people and refugees. Child obesity is a new epidemic that is spreading fast, affecting disproportionately the poor. And micronutrient deficiencies such as anemia are widespread and often not adequately detected. And they constitute a hidden but significant challenge, as they can have a great negative impact on child development. So at UNICEF, we work with governments and partners all around the table today to ensure that food systems do work for children, providing them with the nutrition diet they need to grow healthy. Among the most significant effort in place and to be jointly sustained, and many of these are policies, Raymond, I'd like to mention some strategic actions. Advocacy to ensure affordability and accessibility of healthy foods. Cash transfer programs have been instrumental in emergencies and to support displaced people. And more broadly, national policies need to ensure that the poor can have affordable access to healthy foods. We support large-scale food fortification in countries like flour fortification and salt iodization that can impact positively the diet of the whole population and need to be introduced and sustained over time. We know that sugary drinks contribute to the obesity wave that we are experiencing, and the taxation of sugary drinks has registered a positive impact where applied and should be adopted in more countries. Encouraging governments to prevent marketing of unhealthy foods for children, including in and around schools, is paramount. Such practices should be banned completely, since no economic interest can justify doing harm to children. Product placement in retail stores is also important, as it can go against the principle of making the healthy choice the easy choice, by often placing unhealthy and processed foods on shelves at eye height for children. Again, at policy level, the promotion of front of pack labeling, which makes a difference by helping parents and caregivers to immediately set apart healthy foods from unhealthy foods with color coding linked to salt, sugar, and nutrients content. And finally, we support governments to get school feeding right, with adequate quality standards and reliable monitoring mechanisms, including parents and health professionals' participations. What I listed just now are some of the high-impact interventions and policies that we need to support collectively, providing technical assistance and arguments to governments to do the right things and ensure that food systems work well for children and for the overall population. The IBC Coalition of Food Systems is a great mechanism to harmonize such efforts and build synergies among UN agencies in support of governments to improve food systems. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in Europe and Central Asia 2022 provides us with information that can guide our actions and inform our initiatives to improve food systems in the region. And I want to thank all who contributed to its development, many of whom are sitting around the virtual table today. So we look forward to keep working together to ensure availability of affordable and healthy food to all, especially for children. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriele, for this one, particularly giving the focus again also on the youth, giving the focus also on children. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, this concludes, in fact, the second panel. In this case, thanks again to Gert, Cornelia, Gabriele, and of course, Philippe, for the insights in this area. And thank you to you, particularly also in the great collaboration within the IBC and the contribution to this flagship flagship product in terms of the monitoring of food security, food insecurity in the region. Let me give a couple of concluding points before I'm going to hand over also to Vladimir Olegovich for some of his reflection, and this will then conclude, in this case, also the event. We can take out of the report, we can take out of the discussion that government support to food and agriculture in the region has been increasing, particularly also in middle income countries, and affects, of course, the availability, accessibility, and the diversity, and certainly also the prices of the food. It's important to mention that a significant portion of this support distorts still also the market prices. So this is a clear outcome of the report, which may impact the affordability of the healthy diets. And therefore, of course, it is also destructive to environment and harmful to small-scale producers and indigenous also people. So making food systems more environmental sustainable will really require more support for agriculture research and development, education, extension, pest and disease control, and of course also public food safety control systems are very much necessary. It's also important to develop, to disseminate, and of course also to adopt climate smart agriculture. We have heard this in the two panels very strongly, and more emission efficient technology investment into emission efficient technologies, policies and practices to reduce overall emissions from agriculture. So the success of repurposing efforts of the policy will need to consider the diversity, of course, of each country's context. So the political, the social, the government, and of course also the balance of payment, both at the local and at the national level. And as with previous editions of the regional overview of food security and nutrition, we hope that this report provides really valuable knowledge and evidence and contributes to identifying options for an informed dialogue and concerted action by all of the partners in the region. I think the collaboration today, the discussion in the panels, has shown this very, very clearly. So with this, I will hand over to Vladimir Olegovich before I'm going then to do the closure. Vladimir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raymond and colleagues. Thank you, all of you, for participating and for your invaluable contributions to the discussion. The format is not as expanded as this report actually deserves, but I want to make 5 points, very brief. First, get the report, read it, and use it. Also, please share with us your observations to make it better and more useful next year. Second, important thing is that the UN system is working together on tackling difficult issues and assisting the most vulnerable, women and youth including, suffering the most from the consequences of crisis, natural disasters, climate change. My deep appreciation to our partners in UN system. 3, dealing with immediate challenges, which I just mentioned, we need to focus strategically on food systems transformation, which to my mind is a link that will help us pull the whole chain of food security in a sustainable way. 4, we need to work with the partners, not only in the UN system, but with all our partners, governments, academia, private sector, non-government organizations. The presence of Szeged University students and professors is very much appreciated. Your contribution is very important, and we are looking forward to expand our cooperation in the future. And finally, 5, allow me to express my deepest gratitude to my colleagues who worked hard to prepare the overview in coordination with our partners. Namely, I'm sorry if I forgot somebody, but I don't think so. But anyway, I want to mention 3 names. Raymond Yele, my deputy, whose energy and wisdom are assisting us to produce this kind of event and also the report. To Fan Chen, economist of our regional office, who is behind all the work for this overview. And of course, to Victoria Kalinin, our communication officer, who was assisting us in making it visible and publicly available. So colleagues, thank you all very much. It's a joint effort. And of course, I see Zsolt Kishaba, our colleague from IT group, and Roland, who also connect us all, if not physically, but virtually. Colleagues, thank you very much. I finish it from my side. Looking forward to our further cooperation for the noble goal of food security and assisting those who are in need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Olekovich, for this great closing points and very well summarizing. So with this, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, greetings, of course, to Szeged University. We're looking forward to further collaborate. And thank you very much to our publishing partners, to all the panelists. And we're looking forward, what we usually say after the game is before the game. The food security overview for the region 23 is already starting to make up, and looking forward to the collaboration and the next presentation. Thank you very much. Have a good lunch, good afternoon, and good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.